We're doing a deep dive into a case so cold it became, well, historical folklore. A mystery that haunted Philadelphia for 65 years.
It did. It's the city's oldest, most notorious unsolved homicide. Most people only know it by its famous name, the boy in the box.
The boy in the box, right? Or America's unknown child.
Exactly. And you sent us sources covering the whole history of this, but today we're really focusing on one powerful story, the hunt for a name.
A name that was finally recovered not through, a confession or a lucky break, but through some absolutely groundbreaking forensic science.
That's it. Our whole mission here is to trace how a 4-year-old boy, found brutally murdered, could just remain nameless for generations.
And what were those hidden details that investigators missed for so long? Details that were, hiding in plain sight on his own body.
That's the central paradox of this case.
Right.
You have this victim who was clearly neglected, brutally attacked, but he also had signs of really sophisticated medical care.
That contradiction is what just completely foiled investigators for 6 decades.
It is. It makes no sense.
So let's start at the very beginning, because the discovery itself it's jarring. We're talking February 25, 1957.
Right. And the location is key. It's the outskirts of northeast Philadelphia, an area called Fox Chase.
At the time, it was kind of a mix of woods and fields, and it was a known spot for illegal dumping.
A garbage-strewn area, and ironically, it's right across the street from a Catholic home for troubled girls.
The discovery was just a complete accident of fate, wasn't it?
The terrible one. A college student, Frederick Panonis, was driving home from LaSalle College. He stops his car because a rabbit darts across the road.
So he gets out, maybe thinking he can catch it for dinner or something.
Something like that. But instead of the rabbit, he finds this container just off Susquehanna Road.
The container was a large cardboard shipping box, and this is where the story gets really macabre.
Yeah, the sources detail the markings that were still on the outside. Stenciled warnings that read, "Fragile, handle with care."
Just awful. And it was a box that once held a bassinet, a symbol of new life.
Now holding a dead child. Patrolman Elmer Palmer, who was a father of 2 himself, was the first officer on the scene.
And he's the one who confirmed the grim reality, right?
He is. He saw the top of a head, part of a tiny shoulder. He knew it wasn't a doll, the body inside. It was a small boy, naked, badly bruised.
41 inches tall, but he only weighed 30 pounds.
Which points to severe malnourishment.
So the police knew right away they had a homicide. But the autopsy findings made it clear this wasn't random, it was personal, and it was savage.
The cause of death was a severe blow to the head. The body was covered in dozens of bruises.
And the really key detail that stood out to the medical examiner was that all of these injuries, all these bruises, they appeared to have been inflicted at the same time.
Right. So this wasn't, prolonged physical abuse over weeks or months. It was a single massive beating.
And here's where we have to pause and look at that paradox you mentioned, the one written on his skin.
Yeah, because despite the trauma, despite the clear neglect, the boy's body had clues of professional medical intervention. He had these unique, well-healed surgical scars.
That's right. So it wasn't just the trauma. They found a small L-shaped scar on his chin and, maybe the most telling one, a well-healed scar on his groin.
Which was immediately identified as being consistent with a major hernia operation.
And that's not all, is it?
Not at all. He also had a 1.5-inch surgical scar on his left chest and another one on his left ankle.
Likely from an incision for an infusion or transfusion. This suggests he'd had some kind of serious, maybe chronic health crisis.
Exactly. Something that required specialized medical attention. He was circumcised, but had 0 vaccination marks, which is also strange for the time.
So you have a child who was clearly taken to doctors, who had serious surgeries, yet was ultimately beaten to death and dumped in the woods like garbage.
He creates this completely confounding profile. Who cares for a child's chronic illness so carefully, only to turn around to do something so monstrous?
The body itself told a story of a child who was known by someone, medically at least, yet that identity was just an absolute void.
And so the investigation immediately slammed into a brick wall.
And that's what frustrated everyone for decades. In the hours and days after the news broke, not a single missing person report matched his description. Not in Philadelphia, not anywhere nearby.
No parent was looking for this 4-year-old boy.
So they turned to the few clues they had, the main one being the bassinet box.
Right. They tracked the serial number back to a manufacturer and then to a J.C. Penney store in Upper Darby about 15 miles away.
But here's the problem, and it just shows how hard police work was in the 50s.
All 12 of those bathnets sold between December 56 and February 57 were paid for with cash.
Cash, no name, no address, no paper trail. The lead just died right there.
Completely. And the early forensic efforts weren't much help either. They brought in Dr. Wilton Krogman, a famous anthropologist.
The bone detective.
That was his nickname, yeah. He examined the remains, and based on the signs of illness and malnourishment, he speculated the family might have been itinerant, transient.
People who moved around a lot, didn't put their kids in school, didn't register them.
Exactly. And that profile really influenced the investigation for years. They did pursue some human leads, though.
Like the witness who saw a woman and a boy near the dump site.
Yes, 2 days before the discovery. A man reported seeing a middle-aged woman and a boy, and they were unloading something from a car trunk. But when he stopped to offer help,
The woman went to great lengths to hide her face and the boy's face.
she did. He couldn't provide a usable description of either of them or even the car.
And the police were thorough. I mean, even by 1957 standards. They checked 763 white families who had recently moved into the Fox Chase area.
And every single child was accounted for.
They even saturated the city with flyers showing the boy's post-mortem photo, which was, extremely rare at the time.
And still nothing. Which brings us to the 1960s, and this really strange lead that became known as the basement story.
Okay, for any true crime fan, this is a fascinating example of a lead that seems so promising, but it gets discredited.
It is. A woman who was a psychiatric patient at the time came forward and claimed her mother had killed a boy.
And she gave some really compelling details, didn't she?
She did. She described the layout of her mother's basement where the boy was supposedly held and killed, and she even described the route her mother allegedly took to dump the body in Fox Chase.
A lot of those geographic details matched the known facts of the crime.
But wait, isn't it really unusual to just dismiss a lead because of the source's mental health status?
Yeah.
Especially when the details matched up.
That's a crucial point. Investigators did follow up, but because she was in psychiatric care and because the media frenzy meant so many of those details were already public knowledge,
Okay.
they ultimately decided she wasn't credible. They were afraid it was a false confession, fueled by all the news coverage. They closed the lead.
And that was pretty much the end of human leads for a long, long time. The case just stalled.
Completely. For the next 3 decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were just no tools available to move the case forward without a new witness or a confession.
Because the main hurdle was the identity. If you don't know who your victim is, you have no framework, no motive, no associations, nothing. He was just America's unknown child.
Until some specialized volunteers stepped in.
This is where we bring in the Vidocq Society, an amazing organization. It's a group of volunteer cold case investigators, retired detectives, forensic scientists, behavioral analysts.
And they committed themselves to solving this one case.
They did. They worked tirelessly, often paying for forensic work out of their own pockets because they believed this child deserved to have his name back.
Their first big effort was in 1998. They had the boy's body exhumed for the first time.
Right, hoping to get a usable DNA sample from a tooth. But the quality of the DNA they got was too degraded, too limited for the kind of analysis they needed later on.
That failure really set the stage for the true turning point, though.
It did. Knowing technology was advancing so fast, they had the body exhumed again in 2019 to get better samples. They were betting everything on a new, emerging science, investigative genetic genealogy.
And here is where we move from, historical archaeology to active, cutting-edge forensic science. This was the first ID made as part of the Philadelphia Police Department's new forensic genealogy program.
But what does that process actually involve? I mean, it's not magic. It's incredibly detailed work.
It's an absolute marathon of science and research. The genealogists take that high-quality DNA, they process it, and then they upload the genetic profile to public databases.
Places like GEDmatch, where people voluntarily upload their own DNA for ancestry stuff.
Exactly. And they aren't looking for a direct match. They're looking for, say, third or fourth cousins, distant relatives.
And from those distant relatives, the painstaking work starts. They have to build these massive family trees, working backward, then forward, tracing lineages that might go back to the 1920s or 30s.
They're looking for a common ancestor shared by all these distant cousins, and then they work down through the descendants to find a child who was born around 1953 and then vanished.
This process, which took thousands of hours, it finally worked. Genealogists actually figured out the child's name in October of 2021.
But they kept it quiet for over a year.
They had to. It gave the PPD time to investigate the family, get warrants, and gather all the information they needed before making it public.
That moment finally came on December 8, 2022. The child known for 65 years as the boy in the box was identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13, 1953.
And this is a huge plot twist. It fundamentally changes everything we thought we knew about the crime.
Right. We spent decades with that profile from Dr. Krogman, the itinerant family, the transient life.
And now we know Joseph Zarelli was the child of a prominent family in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. This identity directly contradicts the entire historical assumption that this was a child no one would notice was missing.
Okay, so that creates a new paradox we have to address. If he came from a family of means, why the severe malnourishment? Why the surgical scars from a chronic illness? Why all the secrecy?
That's the new question. This new information suggests that the family's prominence might have been exactly why the case went cold. They had the resources to manage secrecy.
And maybe the ability to shield the child from public view because of his illness or because of the abuse he was suffering?
That's the core insight of this identification. It flips the entire investigation on its head. It moves the focus away from poverty and toward a specific, contained family drama where the abuse was hidden from the world.
And the revelation of Joseph's name is historic, not just for this case, but for law enforcement everywhere.
Ryan Gallagher, who manages the PPD's forensics lab, said their goal now is that there will never be another unidentified homicide victim in the city of Philadelphia.
It's an ambitious goal, but with this technology, it actually seems plausible.
It's a powerful statement, and it connects back to the volunteers, too. The Vidocq Society is now working to install a proper gravestone with Joseph Augustus Zarelli's name on it.
He finally got to come home. But solving the identity doesn't solve the murder.
No, and the case is now an intensely active manhunt, fueled by this whole new context, which raises the critical question: who was responsible for the savage murder of Joseph Augustus Zarelli?
The investigation is ongoing, and it's very discreet. Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw confirmed that while they don't have a named suspect ready for arrest, they have suspicions.
They have suspicions, right. But she emphasized they can't share them publicly. It could compromise the whole criminal investigation.
The good news is that the police are aggressively seeking information from anyone who knew Joseph or his family back in 1957.
And there's a substantial $20,000 reward being offered for any information that leads to an arrest in his case.
We started this deep dive with an unknown child found in a box 65 years ago, an urban ghost story.
And we end with a child named Joseph Augustus Zarelli, a name that turns the entire mystery inside out. The case has moved from, a historical analysis to an active manhunt focused on a very specific group of people.
The body of Joseph Zarelli held secrets for more than 6 decades, written in those surgical scars and the brutal signs of his final hours. Now that science has given him back his identity, what remaining human secret? A confession, a misplaced memory, a hidden piece of clothing will finally bring his killer to justice. That is the final mystery, and it's something for you to think about as the investigation continues today.